Welcome to True Crime Cases, where we delve into the darkest corners of human nature. Today's episode unravels a tale of husband's secret gay love affair with best friend ends in grisly murder. The case of Edward Townsend, his wife Angela, and his best friend James Holbrook would soon become a chilling reminder that even in the most picturesque settings, darkness can lurk just below the surface. Edward Townsend, 45, was a pillar of the Claxton community, a successful corporate lawyer with a keen eye for navigating complex legal waters. Edward had made quite a name for himself in the city's social and professional circles. His wife, Angela Townsend, 42, was equally respected as the curator of the Telfair Museums, known for her impeccable taste and dedication to preserving Claxton's rich cultural heritage. Together, they seemed the perfect couple. Wealthy, attractive, and philanthropic. Their Greek Revival home on Forsyth Park, with its manicured lawn and gleaming white columns, was a testament to their status and success. James Holbrook, 44, had been Edward's best friend since their days at the University of Georgia School of Law. While Edward had pursued a career in corporate law, James had followed his passion for criminal defense, gaining recognition for his sharp mind and eloquent courtroom presence. The two men were often seen together at local charity events, Claxton Bananas baseball games, and exclusive dinner parties, their easy camaraderie the envy of many in their social circle. What the outside world didn't see, however, was the complex web of emotions, desires, and resentments that entangled these three individuals. For years, Edward had been living a double life, carefully concealing his true sexual orientation from everyone, including his wife. His marriage to Angela was one of convenience and social expectation, a shield against the prejudices that still lingered in certain corners of Claxton society. James, on the other hand, had long been open about his homosexuality. He had faced his fair share of challenges in the conservative southern city, but his talent and charisma had eventually won over even his harshest critics. What no one knew was that James and Edward had been carrying on a clandestine affair for the past 7 years, stealing moments of passion in James's Starland District loft, or during business trips to Atlanta. The catalyst for the tragic events that would unfold came in the form of a chance encounter. On a warm September evening, as the scent of jasmine filled the air, James was enjoying a quiet dinner at the Grey, one of Claxton's most acclaimed restaurants. As he sipped his bourbon, his eyes wandered to a secluded corner of the dining room. There, partially hidden by a decorative screen, sat Edward, not with Angela but with a young man James had never seen before. The realization hit James like a physical blow. Edward, his lover, his soulmate, was cheating on it. Irony of the situation, that he, the other man in Edward's marriage, was now experiencing the sting of infidelity, was not lost on James. But logic and reason had no place in the storm of emotions that raged within him. Over the next few weeks, James's hurt and anger festered, transforming into a toxic mixture of jealousy and resentment. He began to follow Edward, documenting his secret rendezvous with the mystery man. Each stolen kiss, each tender touch that James witnessed only served to fuel his growing obsession. Edward, oblivious to James's surveillance, continued his dangerous game of juggling multiple relationships. He maintained the facade of a happily married man with Angela, stole passionate moments with James, and explored a new, exciting connection with Michael Devereaux, a 32-year-old art dealer who had recently moved to Claxton from New Orleans. As September gave way to October, the crisp autumn air seemed to carry with it a sense of impending doom. Angela, though not aware of the full extent of her husband's deceptions, had begun to sense that something was amiss. Edward's late nights at the office and frequent business dinners had become more common, and there was a distance in his eyes that hadn't been there before. On the night of October 15th, the carefully constructed house of cards finally came tumbling down. Edward had told Angela he would be working late on a crucial case, but in reality, he had planned a romantic evening with Michael at a secluded cottage on Tybee Island. James, having overheard Edward's plans during one of his surveillance sessions, decided it was time to confront his lover about his infidelity. What happened next would be pieced together by investigators in the days and weeks to come. Grisly tableau that would shock the genteel residents of Claxton to their core. At approximately 8:45 p.m., security cameras at the entrance to Tybee Island captured Edward's Mercedes crossing the bridge. 30 minutes later, James's BMW was seen following the same route. What transpired in the beach cottage over the next few hours would remain a subject of speculation and horror years to come. First sign that something was terribly wrong came shortly after midnight when a couple taking a moonlit stroll along the beach heard what they described as a scream of pure anguish coming from one of the nearby cottages. Concerned, they called the local police. Officer Rachel Martinez was the first to arrive on the scene. As she approached the cottage, she noted that the front door was slightly ajar. A faint smell of copper hung in the air. Drawing her weapon, she cautiously entered the property. The scene that greeted her would haunt her dreams for years to come. In the living room, illuminated by the flickering light of a toppled lamp, lay the bodies of Edward Townsend and Michael Devereaux. Edward was sprawled across the antique Chesterfield sofa, his once immaculate dress shirt now a canvas of crimson. Michael's body was on the floor, unseen eyes staring up at the ceiling, a look of terror forever etched on his face. The walls and furniture were spattered with blood, silent witnesses to the violence that had unfolded. But it was the message scrawled on the mirror in what appeared to be blood that sent a chill down Officer Martinez's spine. The wages of sin. As dawn broke over Tybee Island, the beach cottage had been transformed into a hive of activity. Crime scene investigators meticulously documented every blood spatter, every overturned piece of furniture. Detective Marcus Blackwood, veteran of Claxton's Violent Crimes Unit, stood in the center of the chaos, his mind already racing to piece together the puzzle before him. The brutality of the crime scene suggested a crime of passion, a theory supported by the chilling message left behind. Who had written it? Where was James Holbrook? As the investigation unfolded over the next few days, a picture began to emerge of the tangled web of relationships that had led to this tragic outcome. Angela Townsend, devastated by the news of her husband's death, was even more shocked to learn of his secret life. Her pain was compounded by the realization that their entire marriage had been built on a foundation of lies. Friends and colleagues of Edward, James, and Michael questioned, each interview revealing another layer of the complex dynamics at play. Many expressed shock at the revelation of Edward's sexuality, while others admitted to having suspicions, choosing to look the other way out of respect for his privacy or fear of social repercussions. The breakthrough in the case came 4 days after the murders, when James Holbrook's BMW was found abandoned near Bonaventure Cemetery, its interior spattered with blood. A manhunt was immediately launched. Local and state law enforcement, combing the historic cemetery and surrounding areas. It was a groundskeeper who eventually made the grim discovery. In a secluded corner of the cemetery, beneath the spreading branches of a massive oak tree draped in Spanish moss, lay the body of James Holbrook. He had died by his own hand, a single gunshot wound to the temple. Beside him was a handwritten note, its contents a mix of anguish, remorse, and bitter accusations. In the note, James confessed to the murders of Edward and Michael, describing in painful detail how he had followed them to the beach cottage, consumed by jealousy and rage. He wrote of confronting Edward, of the argument that ensued, and of the moment when his emotions overwhelmed him, leading him to commit the horrific act that would end 3 lives and shatter countless others. As news of James's confession and suicide spread, the city of Claxton was plunged into a state of collective shock and mourning. The tale of secret affairs, betrayal, and murder seemed more suited to a sensational novel than to their quiet, genteel community. In the weeks that followed, the case dominated local headlines and became the subject of hushed conversations in cafes along Broughton Street and in the squares that dotted the historic district. Many struggled to reconcile the Edward, James, and Michael they thought they knew with the tragic figures at the center of this sordid tale. Angela Townsend, grappling with the dual blows of her husband's betrayal and his violent death, retreated from public life. She took a leave of absence from the Telfair museums, unable to face the pitying glances and whispered gossip that followed her everywhere she went. Friends reported that she had thrown herself into volunteer work at a local animal shelter, finding solace in helping creatures that offered unconditional love and acceptance. The families of Michael Devereaux and James Holbrook were left to grapple with their own complex emotion. Grief for their lost loved ones mingled with anger, confusion, and in some cases shame. Michael's parents, who had traveled from New Orleans to claim their son's body, spoke of his excitement about starting a new life in Claxton and his dreams of opening his own gallery. They struggled to understand how their son had become entangled in such a tragic web of deceit. As the initial shock began to fade, the incident sparked important conversations in Claxton about acceptance, honesty, and the dangers of living in denial. LGBTQ+ advocacy groups pointed to the tragedy as a stark reminder of the harm caused by a society still made some feel they had to hide their true selves. Local churches grappled with how to address the issue, with some offering messages of inclusion and acceptance, while others doubled down on traditional views of marriage and sexuality. The beach cottage on Tybee Island stood empty, a silent monument to the lives lost and the secrets revealed. Real estate agents whispered that it would likely remain unsold for years, the weight of its history too heavy for most potential buyers to bear. Some locals even began to claim that on quiet nights, they could hear the ghostly echoes of that fateful confrontation carried on the sea breeze. In Forsyth Park, where Edward and James had often taken their morning jogs, a small memorial appeared. Photos of the three men in happier times, surrounded by flowers and candles, served as a poignant reminder of the fragility of life and the devastating consequences. Hidden truth. Bookmark. As autumn deepened and the live oaks shed their leaves, Claxton began the slow process of healing. The case of Edward, James, and Michael would forever be a part of the city's history, a dark chapter in its long and storied past. For those who had known them, the tragedy served as a stark reminder of the complexities of human nature, power of secrets, and the destructive force of unresolved emotions. It was a cautionary tale, whispered to newcomers and retold with a mixture of sorrow and fascination by longtime residents. The legal community in Claxton was particularly shaken by the event. Both Edward and James had been respected members of the bar, their careers seemingly on an upward trajectory. Now, their colleagues were left to wonder how much they truly knew about the people they worked alongside every day. The Claxton Bar Association held a special meeting to address the tragedy and its implications for the legal profession. Discussions ranged from the importance of mental health support for lawyers to the need for greater acceptance and inclusivity within the field. Some older members grumbled about the erosion of traditional values, while younger attorneys pushed for more progressive policies and support system. In the art world, the loss of Michael Devereaux was keenly felt. The gallery he had been in the process of opening on Whitaker Street remained unfinished, poignant reminder of unfulfilled potential. Local artists organized a memorial exhibition in his honor, showcasing works that explored themes of identity, secrecy, and the human condition. As the weeks turned into months, the case of the Tybee Island murders became intertwined with Claxton's rich tapestry of ghost stories and local legend. Tour guides added it to their repertoire, weaving the tale into their nighttime walks through the historic district. Some claimed to have seen the spirits of Edward, James, and Michael wandering the squares late at night, forever bound by their secrets and regrets. The Greek Revival home on Forsyth Park that Edward and Angela had shared stood empty for nearly a year before it was finally sold. The new owners, a young couple from Atlanta, spoke of strange occurrences, doors opening on their own, the sound of muffled arguments echoing through empty rooms, the lingering scent of unfamiliar cologne. Whether these were truly supernatural manifestations or simply the product of overactive imaginations, fueled by the house's notorious history, remained a subject of debate. In the legal world, the repercussions of the tragedy continued to ripple outward. Edward's law firm, once one of the most prestigious in Claxton, struggled to recover from the scandal. Clients quietly took their business elsewhere, and young associates began to look for positions at other firms, fearing that the taint of association would harm their future prospects. James's criminal defense practice, which he had built from the ground up, was dismantled. His cases were redistributed among other attorneys, many of whom felt a mix of professional opportunity and personal discomfort, as they took on the work of a man they had once admired and now viewed with a complex blend of pity and revulsion. Courtrooms of the Chatham County Courthouse, where both Edward and James had once commanded respect and attention, now seemed to echo with whispers of their downfall. Judges who had known them personally struggled to maintain their impartiality when cases touched on issues of infidelity or hidden sexuality, their minds inevitably drawn back to the tragic events on Tybee Island. In the art community, Michael's death left a void that was not easily filled. The gallery he had dreamed of opening became a reality with the efforts of his friends and fellow artists, who saw it as a way to honor his memory and ensure that his vision lived on. The Michael Devereux Gallery opened its doors 6 months after his death, showcasing works that challenged conventions and explored the complexities of human relationships and identity. As the 1-year anniversary of the murders approached, Claxton found itself grappling with how to commemorate the event. Some argued for a public memorial service, a way for the community to come together and heal. Others felt that such a display would only serve to reopen old wounds and sensationalize a tragedy best left in the past. In the end, compromise was reached. A small, private ceremony was held at the Bonaventure Cemetery, attended by close friends and family members of all 3 men. Angela Townsend, who had slowly begun to re-emerge into public life, spoke briefly, her words a poignant reflection on the nature of love, forgiveness, and the human capacity for self-deception. "We cannot change the past," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion that threatened to overwhelm her. "But we can learn from it. We can strive to create a world where no one feels the need to hide who they truly are, where love in all its forms is celebrated rather than condemned. Only then can we hope to prevent such tragedies from occurring again." As she spoke, a gentle breeze rustled through the Spanish moss, as if the very trees were bearing witness to her words. Many in attendance later spoke of feeling a sense of catharsis, a releasing of the pent-up emotions that had simmered beneath the surface for so long. In the years that followed, the case of Edward Townsend, James Holbrook, and Michael Devereux became a part of Claxton's complex history, a modern tragedy set against the backdrop of the city's timeless beauty. Visitors to Bonaventure Cemetery might pause at the spot where James spent his final moments, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the coastal breeze. The beach cottage on Tybee Island, after standing empty for years, was eventually purchased by a writer who claimed the tragic history of the place inspired her work. The novel, Secrets of the Low Country, became a bestseller, further cementing the case in the public consciousness. In quiet moments, when the cicadas hummed in the trees and the setting sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, the people of Claxton would remember. It would remember the smiling faces of Edward, James, and Michael at charity galas and community events. They would remember the shock of discovery, the horror of violence erupting in their peaceful community. And they would remember the lessons learned about acceptance, about honesty, about the importance of living one's truth. For in Claxton, a city where history whispers from every corner, the case of Edward Townsend, James Holbrook, and Michael Devereux would forever serve as a somber reminder that beneath the most picturesque facades, the darkest secrets can lurk, and that when those secrets finally come to light, the consequences can be devastating beyond imagination. As the years passed, the tale would be told and retold, a cautionary case of love, lies, and the tragic price of living in denial. And perhaps, in some small way, it would help future generations to live more openly, more honestly, and with greater compassion for the complex tapestry of human emotions that binds us all. The impact of the tragedy extended far beyond Claxton city limits. True crime podcasts and documentary series picked up the case, dissecting every detail of the case and speculating about the motivations of those involved. The national attention brought a mix of emotions to the local community. Some felt it was important to share the case as a cautionary tale, while others resented the intrusion and sensationalization of their personal grief. 5 years after the incident, a group of LGBTQ+ activists in Claxton established the Townsend Holbrook Devereux Foundation, dedicated to promoting acceptance and providing support for individuals struggling with their sexual identity in conservative communities. The foundation offered counseling services, support groups, and educational programs aimed at fostering a more inclusive society. Angela Townsend, who had initially retreated from public life, eventually became a vocal advocate for the foundation. Her journey from betrayed wife to champion of LGBTQ+ rights became a powerful narrative of personal growth and forgiveness. In a TEDx talk that went viral, she spoke candidly about her experiences and the lessons she had learned. "Love is not a finite resource," she said, her voice strong and clear. "The heart has an infinite capacity for understanding and acceptance. It's fear that limits us, that drives us to hide our true selves and judge others. But love, real, unconditional love, that's what sets us free." The legal community in Claxton, too, underwent significant changes in the wake of the tragedy. Claxton Bar Association implemented mandatory sensitivity training for all its members, focusing on LGBTQ+ issues and mental health awareness. A mentorship program was established, pairing young lawyers with experienced professionals who could offer guidance not just on legal matters, but on navigating the personal challenges of a high-stress career. In the art world, the Michael Devereux Gallery became a beacon for emerging artists exploring themes of identity and sexuality. Annual exhibitions commemorating Michael's vision drew visitors from across the country, turning Claxton into an unexpected hub for avant-garde art. The beach cottage on Tybee Island, long avoided by locals, eventually found a new purpose. A non-profit organization purchased the property and transformed it into a retreat center for LGBTQ+ youth, a place of healing and self-discovery. The irony of turning a site of tragedy into a haven of hope was not lost on anyone. As Claxton moved into a new decade, the scars left by the Townsend Holbrook Devereux affair had begun to fade, but the lessons remain. The city, known for its historic charm and genteel manners, had been forced to confront the complexities of modern life and love head-on. Local schools incorporated discussions of acceptance and identity into their curricula, sparking both controversy and meaningful dialogue among students and parents. Churches grappled with reconciling traditional teachings with the need for compassion and inclusion. Some congregations split over the issue, while others found ways to bridge the divide, creating more welcoming spaces for all members of the community. The legal firms where Edward and James had once worked underwent their own transformations. Edward's former firm, after an initial period of struggle, rebranded itself as a champion of corporate diversity initiatives. They established a pro bono program specifically aimed at providing legal assistance to LGBTQ+ individuals facing discrimination. James's old criminal defense practice was taken over by a group of young, idealistic lawyers who made it their mission to advocate for marginalized communities. They named their new firm Phoenix Legal, symbolizing the rebirth of something positive from the ashes of tragedy. On the 10th anniversary of the murders, the city of Claxton held a week-long series of events dedicated to promoting love, acceptance, and understanding. Art exhibitions, panel discussions, and community outreach programs brought people together from all walks of life to share their stories and perspective. The culmination of the week was a candlelight vigil held in Forsyth Park, where Edward and James had often spent time together. Thousands gathered, holding flickering lights that illuminated the night. As the names of Edward Townsend, James Holbrook, and Michael Devereux were read aloud, a hush fell over the crowd. It was a moment of collective reflection, a recognition of how far the community had come, and how much further they still had to go. In the years that followed, Claxton became known not just for its historic squares and Southern hospitality, but as a model for how a traditional community could evolve to embrace diversity and inclusivity. Tragedy that had once threatened to tear the city apart had, in the end, brought people together in ways no one could have imagined. Visitors to Claxton now often made pilgrimages to the sites associated with the Townsend Holbrook Devereux affair. The Greek Revival home on Forsyth Park, the beach cottage on Tybee Island, and the spot in Bonaventure Cemetery where James had taken his life all became stops on a new kind of tour, one that spoke not of ghosts and hauntings, but of human frailty, the cost of secrets, and the power of acceptance. As the case faded into legend, it became a part of Claxton's rich tapestry of tales, woven alongside stories of pirates, Civil War heroes, and antebellum romances. But unlike those distant legends, the case of Edward, James, and Michael continued to resonate with contemporary issues, serving as a touchstone for discussions about love, identity, and the ongoing struggle for equality. In the end, the tragedy that unfolded on that fateful night in October had changed Claxton forever. It had forced a reckoning with long-held prejudices and hidden truths. It had brought pain and loss, but also growth and understanding. And in doing so, it had written a new chapter in the history of a city that had seen centuries of change, proving once again, even in the face of darkness, there is always the potential for light. As the sun sets over Claxton, casting long shadows across its historic squares and illuminating the Spanish moss in a golden glow, the city stands as a testament to the complexities of human nature and the enduring power of love in all its forms. Case of Edward Townsend, James Holbrook, and Michael Devereux, once a shocking scandal, has become a part of the city's soul. A reminder that beneath the surface of even the most picturesque facade, the human heart beats with all its passion, flaws, and infinite capacity. Transformation. Thank you for joining us on this deeply emotional journey through the tragic case of Edward Townsend, James Holbrook, and Michael Devereux. Case you've just heard is a stark reminder of how hidden desires and unspoken truths can lead to unimaginable consequence. It's a tale of love, betrayal, and the destructive power of secrets. A tale that has left an indelible mark on the community of Claxton and all those who have heard it. As we reflect on the events that unfolded, it's important to acknowledge the complex emotions and human experiences at the heart of this case. Edward, James, and Michael were individuals navigating their own personal struggles, each of them dealing with the pressures of societal expectations, personal identity, and the pursuit of love. Their lives, intertwined in ways that would ultimately lead to tragedy, serve as a poignant reminder of the importance of living authentically and the dangers of hiding one's true self. In the wake of this tragedy, Claxton community, and indeed all of us, are left to grapple with difficult question. How do we create a society where people feel safe to be who they truly are? How do we prevent the fear of judgment from driving individuals to make choices that could lead to their own undoing? These are not easy questions to answer, but they are questions that must be asked if we are to learn from the past and build a more compassionate future. For Angela Townsend, the journey from betrayal to advocacy has been a profound one. Her ability to turn her pain into a force for good, to become a champion for LGBTQ+ rights, is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Her case reminds us that even in the darkest of times, there is the potential for growth, healing, and for making a positive impact in the world. The establishment of the Townsend Holbrook Devereux Foundation is a direct result of this tragedy, but it also represents hope. Hope that future generations will not have to live in fear of their true identities. Hope that acceptance and understanding will replace judgment and prejudice. And hope that love, in all its forms, will be celebrated rather than condemned. As we conclude this episode, we want to express our deepest gratitude to you, our viewers, for your continued support and engagement. Your willingness to delve into these challenging and often heartbreaking stories with us is what makes this channel possible. Together, we explore the complexities of the human experience, the light and the dark, and in doing so, we seek to understand, to learn, and to grow. We also want to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of mental health and emotional well-being. The pressures faced by Edward, James, and Michael are not unique. Many people struggle with the weight of societal expectations, the fear of rejection, and with the internal conflict between who they are and who the world expects them to be. If you or someone you know is facing similar challenges, we encourage you to reach out for support. There are resources available, and no one should have to navigate these struggles alone. As we look ahead to future episodes, we remain committed to bringing you stories that not only engage and inform, but also encourage reflection and discussion. True crime is more than just a recounting of events. It's an exploration of the human condition, the choices we make, and the consequences of those choices. It's about understanding the underlying issues that lead to tragedy and, hopefully, finding ways to prevent similar events from happening in the future. We invite you to join us again as we continue to explore the darker corners of human nature. Each case we shared is an opportunity to learn, to empathize, and to consider how we as individuals and as a society can do better. Your presence, your thoughts, and your engagement are invaluable to us, and we look forward to continuing this journey with you. Finally, if this episode resonated with you, please consider sharing it with others. Whether it's through social media, word of mouth, or a simple conversation, spreading awareness of these stories can have a powerful impact. By shining a light on the issues raised in these cases, we can contribute to a broader dialogue about acceptance, understanding, and the importance of living authentically. Thank you once again for your support, your empathy, and your willingness to explore these challenging topics with us. We are honored to have you as part of our community, and we are committed to continuing to provide you with thoughtful, engaging content that delves into the true complexities of life and human nature. We'll see you in the next episode, where we will continue our exploration of the most compelling and thought-provoking true crime cases. Until then, take care, be kind to one another, and remember that understanding and compassion are the keys to creating a better, more just world. Thank you.